Welcome to the Australian Finance Podcast, a podcast for people who want to learn more about their personal finances and get the most from their money. This series is hosted by Kate Campbell from How to Money and Owen Raskovich from Rask Finance.
The Australian Finance Podcast is provided for educational purposes only. The information is general in nature and does not take into account your needs, goals, or objectives. What that means is the information does not apply to you specifically. So consider getting the advice of a licensed and trusted professional before acting on the information. Kate, welcome to the next episode of the Australian Finance Podcast.
Yes, it is wonderful to be back, and luckily we're inside today because it is raining out there.
It is. The rain has just subsided, so we have some peace and quiet, but if it returns, we're sorry in advance. We'll stay extra close to the mics.
I don't think Owen's tested recording with rain in the background, so
I'm sure our creative genius, who is Sally, will be able to edit this for us. But anyway, what are we talking about today?
So we've had a lot of questions about the financial tools that we use in our personal life. And there's so many things out there, so it's really understandable that people do want to know how to filter through and find the good things out there. And it's obviously very personal, what works for you, but we thought we'd address that topic today and discuss some of the favourite apps, programs, websites we use when we're managing our personal finances.
Yep, come on, we'll provide show notes. We'll provide show notes with all the
there'll
links.
There'll be
to
a lot
these
of
things.
links in the show notes today.
I'd like to make one thing clear before we go on, though, is just to say that these things are not recommendations, so we're not telling you, the listener, that this is right for you, because we don't know your situation. But the second thing is we have no affiliation with these products. If we do have anything, we'll let you know, and we'll clear those up as we go through. Like, I think I might have a couple. So we'll just keep in mind that we're not giving you advice that this is the best thing for you. We're just saying this is what we use. Okay, Kate, we're also going to do another podcast on buy now, pay later apps, because I know we're both big fans and we use these apps regularly.
Yeah, it's definitely a controversial topic, and I've had the argument both ways with people over the last few years. So I think that'll be an interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah, so things like Afterpay we'll discuss in another podcast. And I said that in jest before, it was just a joke. Neither of us use those apps. So we'll save that for then in any case. Kate, why don't we just kick off? What are some of the apps that you use?
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought I'd start with my sort of budgeting and goal setting apps. So I have mentioned before, but there's a fantastic free app in the Australian App Store called Frollo, and it allows you to connect all of your bank accounts, your cards, and even sort of your share brokerage accounts and things like that. And you can track everything in one spot. And it also, the most important thing is it categorizes your spending, but you can also put goals. So you might want to spend $500 on, food in the month. And it actually shows you how much you've spent compared to your goal and if you've gone over, and it notifies you as well. So it's really great once you've worked out your budget, you can put all your spending, saving goals in there, and it actually tells you if you've reached them, if you haven't. And as far as I know, it's free at the moment. Okay,
cool. So it might be one of those ones where you get it for free now and then you get hooked on it, and then maybe there's a fee
I'm not sure if they're white labeling to corporate companies to make money. So
so it might have a slightly different model. Right, okay. I'm
always curious about how people do really good products for free and what the incentives are, but at the moment it just looks like they're white labeling it to corporate companies to keep it free for the consumer.
Well, hopefully that continues then.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the other ones that you use?
Okay, traditional... instead of Excel, I use Google Sheets because it's on the go. I can log in on any device and I can just update it, edit at any time. So I use that sort of to track my assets and liabilities in one spot, and that's sort of something I might look at once a month. I try not to look too often because that sort of makes you too emotionally attached to the ups and downs of your investments and your finances. But it's something I look at on a monthly basis just to make sure I'm on track and reaching... in progress to reach my goals.
Okay, so I use Google Sheets as well, but I use it for everything, or Google Drive for everything. So do you just put all of your investments and cash, and you actually manually put that in there?
Yep.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's fine.
It's sort of like cathartic going through at the end of each month and going, this is what's in this bank account, this is what's in this transaction account, and sort of I'd manually type it in there. I mean, I could use Frollo and just check it all in one place, but I kind of like seeing the progress. And I've been doing this for the last 2 years, so I can sort of scroll to the very top of the sheet and see the very beginning of my saving journey, when it was just sort of sitting, everything was just my savings, and sort of how I've grown. And I've had to add more columns over the last couple of years, but it's really interesting to sort of scroll back and look at where you came from and where you are now.
Okay, cool. I like that. It's what's that? SMART goals. Yeah. I can't remember the acronym, so I'll just leave it at that. But I'm sure we can Google SMART goals. Another app that you use, you've got another one on the list here that I've seen.
Yeah. So this is one. It's sort of it's a neobank, but they are backed by Bendigo and Adelaide banks. So they're not completely brand new. They're using the infrastructure of Bendigo and Adelaide banks. So it's
what's a neobank, just for people that are listening?
Yeah. So it's very loose definition. I was doing some research the other day, but pretty much a new banking institution that sort of cuts away all the old parts of the bank and offers something new for consumers, fancy tech, round-up features, savings. It uses technology to track what you're doing and how you could save more money. So there's all these different cool features. They're usually brightly coloured. They're really popular in the US and the UK. And there's a few that have got banking licenses in Australia but haven't launched yet. So that's going to be a very interesting space to watch.
Cool. Okay.
So they're pretty much doing something new.
Yep.
And they're using technology to make banking better for the consumer.
Yeah, right. So it's obviously all online.
Yeah. So no traditional branches. So it's all online, and most of them at the moment are only doing sort of transaction and savings accounts. In Australia, they haven't got as far as home loans and other products yet.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So this one is called Up Money. So that's what I mentioned before. And they have a great tool in the savings account. So you set up one savings account. So you get one BSB, one account number. But inside that savings account, you can segregate your goals into lots of different ones. So inside of that My Savings account, I've got a Christmas account. So I can transfer money straight in there, and I can also set up a goal that I want to save $500 by Christmas time. And I can also turn on roundups. So all my roundups go straight to Christmas, and I can move money there and see how I'm tracking towards that goal. And I can also, I have another goal for New Zealand because I'm going to New Zealand later in the year. So you can have multiple savings accounts for different goals side by side, and they let you label them with emojis as well, which is cool.
Okay, cool. I like
That's the best part, the emojis.
The emojis that just makes it cool. Yeah. I like that. As we drew up the notes for this episode, I noticed that you have such a better list than me. Mine's terrible, but we'll get to them in a minute. So what are some of the things that you use for investing?
Yeah, so at the moment for investing as a brokerage account, now bear in mind there is I think 20 or 30 different companies that offer brokerage services in Australia. So do your research, and sort of CanStar Finder have comparison sites that you can compare. Different costs, different tools, but I currently use CommSec just because it's simple for me and it offers the things I need. But definitely do your research there because there are more competitive priced options.
Yeah, I use CommSec. So that's no shocker. I think it's one of the biggest in the country.
And they have a good app.
Yeah, I don't use the app. I deliberately do not use the app. So
if you want to just have the app to check prices for things, that's quite handy.
Okay.
So I use them for reporting for like tax and stuff. A company called ShareSite. So they're free for the first 10 stocks or ETFs you put in there. So you can generate tax reporting, and it also tracks your account as well. So you can see all of the information you need in one spot and generate good reports and sort of get a picture of your investment portfolio in one spot.
Your performance and all that type of stuff. Yeah, cool. And there's a product called InvestSmart Portfolio Manager.
Yeah, so that's another free tool that you can use to track your entire net worth in one spot as well. So I use that as well to put everything in one spot.
Cool. And how about, I noticed you've got one more thing here under investments, which is research. Where do you get your research from?
So I am sort of still in that learning phase. So I'm sort of trying to learn, why do people buy stocks, for what reasons? Why do they sell them? Why do they do badly picking XYZ stocks? So I have, over the last few years, tried to work out which fund managers I like, and I follow them. So maybe by either following them on Twitter or subscribing to their newsletters, where they're always happy to send out their quarterly reports or their monthly performance reports, but they often write about what stocks they're buying and why. So that's always interesting to sort of learn a bit and pick good fund managers that have had sustainable long-term returns as well. And it's interesting just to follow along and see what they're doing and learn from that process.
Okay. Do you want to share any of those names, or you don't want to?
There's a few in the US that I follow. And in Australia, I certainly follow Platinum. What else? Forager. I'm just trying to think. I get quite a few.
Those two are good. So those
are
two of the bigger ones. Well, Forager's not exactly the bigger one, but it's got Australian and international investments, and it's run by Steve Johnson, who's a pretty humble guy and nice enough. So seems to be pretty
and
intellectually honest.
As I've spent time on Twitter, I've followed some more and unfollowed some, sort of to see which ones I like.
Cool. I like that. All right. Podcasts. What are your favourite podcasts?
Okay, well, apart
Other
from
than this one,
our podcast, there's a great one in the US called Listen Money Matters. So it's run by two young guys over there, and that's really interesting. They have more long-form interviews and sort of go in depth in different topics. So I've enjoyed listening to that, and they've been doing that for quite a few years now. Bear in mind they're going to be talking about 401ks, which is sort of the American version of super, and other things that aren't really relevant in Australia, but the core concepts are pretty good. Another one I really like is called Invest Like the Best. And
Patrick O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah, so he's a professional fund manager over there, and he talks a lot more holistically. Some is really specific, but some it's just sort of investor psychology and really broad topics, and it's very interesting. And he does a good job putting those together.
He's a brilliant interviewer.
I have been listening to Owen's Australian Investors podcast, so he's had some great guests on there.
Steve Johnson was one of them.
Yeah. And what do you have? The founder of Magellan? The CEO of Magellan?
Yeah, founder and Chief Investment Officer, Hamish Douglas.
So that was Owen's first billionaire interview, so that was pretty exciting.
Yes, he was.
There's another one by Chris Guillebeau called Side Hustle School, and he publishes an episode. It's about 4 or 5 minutes every day, sharing a different person's side hustle story. And I've been sort of listening to it on and off for the last few years, and the amazing array of ways that people have created a side source of income through side hustles. Like everything from like beekeeping to like swimming, instructing to, I don't know, I've listened to some crazy ones, but like it really shows you that you can make money in 1,000,001 different ways if you're creative.
Is it Australian?
I think he's American, but he features stories from all over the place.
Oh, cool. I
went and saw him when he came on his book tour last year, so that was pretty exciting.
Oh, nice. Okay, last one.
And there's another one by ABC called, I think, The Money, and that's a little bit more technical, looking at the Australian economy and how everything works on a more technical basis, and they do put a lot of research into that podcast.
Yeah, economics, yeek. Jeez.
I mean, half of it still floats over my head, but I try.
I'm sure it's interesting.
I've been reading this really basic economics book at home, and I've sort of been
Economics 101.
Yeah, essentially. It's got pictures and everything, but still struggling.
Okay. How about, this is a good one. I like some of the names in here. How about the websites that you use or that you read?
Yeah, so we had a guest who runs a blog called Miss Moneybox on earlier this year. So I really enjoy her writing style, and she writes in a really down-to-earth and understandable way about personal finance issues. So that's really a good one to start with. There's also Money Magazine. So that's Australia's pretty much only money magazine. Is
it actually a magazine?
Yeah, they print it.
Do they?
Yeah. I think they celebrated their 50th birthday, 20th birthday. I saw some photos the other month. So that's still in print, so you can find it at the newsagents if anyone goes to those anymore. Otherwise, but they do publish a lot of free content online. That's usually quite good, and they get advisors and accountants to answer questions as well. So that's
Cool.
quite a good source of free information, and it's fairly factual. If you're looking for something a bit more focused on investing, Livewire is a great place.
Come on. No, they are good.
For free information from fund managers all across Australia.
Yeah, cool. I like
And there's also the Australian Financial Review, which I subscribe to.
Oh, you do? You pay for a version?
Yes, the student version, which is nice and affordable.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Though my friends have told me that I'm probably the only 20-year-old in Australia that's reading the AFR, though I'm sure there's more.
Oh, I'm sure some people see it on the train, left behind by someone, and read it.
Yeah, so I've got the app, though. I'm a bit more tech-savvy than
Okay.
that.
Alright.
So I sort of have a look at what's happening in the financial news on the way to work. So that's sort of how I get some of my news.
Cool. I like it. You don't read Rask Media?
Oh, occasionally.
Oh, Jesus. Well,
When you hit my
it's a tough
inbox.
crowd, I guess. Okay, final one from you, which is the books that you like or that you've read or that you would recommend.
Yeah, so Side Hustle is probably the first in the list that I really like that I read. So that's the guy who runs the Side Hustle podcast. It's a bright yellow coloured book, and that's just, if you want to start a side hustle, that's the book to read. And all the libraries will have it by now because it's been in print for many years.
Cool.
Another book I really like is called The Simple Path to Wealth, and that's probably one of the most popular personal finance books in the United States. It does have that US perspective, but it really shows you the importance of getting started with investing early, and that it doesn't have to be complicated, but it's just about doing it regularly and just getting started. So it sort of shows you what is possible with investing.
Mm-hmm. J.L. Collins, he's got a good Google talk on YouTube, actually. It's a really good hour of listening or watching.
And another one I really like is called Millennial Money by James and Patrick O'Shaughnessy. I'm not quite sure of the relationship between the two, if it's brother or father and son. Anyway, that one is really good for young people. American perspective again, but I really rate Patrick O'Shaughnessy, and it sort of tells you the importance of getting started and why cash in the bank is going to kill you.
Yeah, okay. That's, yeah, well, I suppose fair enough. Any others? Or is that it?
I could talk about books for days, but that's probably enough for now.
Okay. Now, just going back over some of those, I reckon the Frollo tracking app sounds really neat. And it's interesting that we both use the same brokerage account, but I guess it's not surprising.
Mate,
because
we all get signed up to Commonwealth Bank when we're a kid, and it's just natural progression.
Well, okay, so this is a good segue into my stuff, but I use CommSec, but I didn't start there. I started with CMC Markets because I went to, I think it was the CanStar website, and they were like the top of the list.
They're cheaper as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they were about $9.95 when I joined up, and I think they've gone up a bit now, but they're pretty much the same thing. At the time, CMC Markets only did Australian, and it's through CMC Markets that I found ShareSite, actually, which is the reporting app that you mentioned. I don't use as much anymore, but they had an integration there. So I use CommSec. I did use CMC Markets, and then for US only shares, I did use Charles Schwab, which was Options Express at the time. It's a bit clunky because you'd have to send the money, then send off like a screenshot of you depositing the money, and then it would have to get approved. And it was just a bit of a, yes.
That sounds antiquated.
Yeah, it was. For something that wasn't that long ago, it was a bit of a pain. So CommSec offers it all in one place, so that's why I went there. Anyway, ING and ME Bank are the two banks that I use. I'm not trying to sell it to anyone, but they offered pretty good rates, particularly for couples. I found ING slightly better for couples.
They're getting cut.
Yes, they are. Well, they're all going to get cut because interest rates are falling. So expect cash, like you said. If you've got lots of cash, you're not going to be laughing for too much longer. So yeah, ME Bank. I'll get to this in a minute, but I use Apple Pay with my iPhone. Own shares in Apple, just a disclosure, and I link my ING and my NAB business card to to Apple Pay, so I can just flick through the cards and just double tap on the side of the phone.
I feel like that would be annoying, having to swipe between the cards on
No,
your phone.
so it's simple. Like it uses facial recognition because it's the iPhone 10 or whatever it is.
So fancy.
And you just press the button on the side.
Yeah.
It takes a photo of your face. It confirms it's you, and then you can just flick a card away or in if you want to use that one, and then you tap and go.
I've only used Apple Pay with one card.
Right. You can put like your Virgin Velocity or your what I think maybe like Woolworths Rewards. I don't know, all that sort of stuff. You can you can store all that kind of stuff on there, so that's pretty handy. I mentioned I use NAB for the business for the Rask Group because I was with CommBank and they sucked. So the apps and all that's fine, but I don't like paying $10 a month Commonwealth Bank just to have an account open. So if you're listening to this, that's what sent me across the street. So I had an account. I went in there. I'm like, can you wipe this $10 a month bank account charge? I said to him, I'm going to have like 10 accounts with you. Surely I don't have to pay $10 for every single account I have. They're like, no. So I walked across the road to NAB and they did it without that.
It's not worth paying any account keeping fees nowadays.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned in a podcast before that I have not a complex, but I have a company that's got a trust, and then there's all this other stuff that goes on. And the people at NAB helped me out there, so that was pretty cool. No relationship to any of these product providers, by the way, and they could change at any time. Google Sheets and Google Drive. So Google Sheets is like the Excel version, and Drive is like the all-in-one, everything's place where you can put things in the cloud, you can access it. Like I'm reading this stuff off my iPad. I could get it on
Google Docs has changed our lives.
Yeah, and the thing is, all the others are playing catch up now, and some of them are pretty good. But Google Docs is by far the best, in my opinion. Okay, so for investing apps, I said I don't use CommSec. I don't check my brokerage account.
You use CommSec on the computer, to clarify.
Yeah, I do use CommSec on the computer.
Just not on your phone.
Yeah, not on my phone. And even if I do use it on the phone, I actually use like the browser, Chrome or whatever on my phone. But anyway.
That's what I do with Facebook.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't let myself have the app.
Interesting. That's a podcast for next time.
Yeah.
I use the Stock Lite app. I know the guy that runs this, Jason. It's an Australian-made app designed for just keeping track of your portfolio. You can't trade through it as far as I know. There's a bit of a conflict here, though. I should say that our news and our research actually goes into his app. I used it before that, but it's just happened recently. I also use PayPal. The business obviously sends and receives PayPal, but PayPal's really good. I was taking German lessons, like language lessons, and I was amazed. This guy, he actually lived in Denmark, and he literally connected with me via email over tutor.com, and he said, just send the money to my email address. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you just use PayPal. And I just put in his email address and literally like just sent and received it. Like money, like that quick.
Wow.
And we even use it now for the business. We can buy things online just using PayPal, or what we get invoiced as a business through PayPal. So that's really cool. Disclosure, I own PayPal shares. Twitter. So I use Twitter for keeping up with everyone. So yourself and everyone else in the financial Twitter sphere. It's really cool because you can just talk to like the person that who's your idol, who you really respect. Sometimes they might just tweet back at you, or just send you off 140 characters or 280, whatever it is now.
Twitter definitely breaks down the barriers. You might never get a chance to see this busy CEO in person, but you send them a tweet and you're probably going to get a response. I mean, I haven't had any time where I've tweeted at someone and haven't had a reply. Yeah,
and normally they're more than happy to like or retweet something nice that you say, let's be honest. And that's about it. So I've been over like Apple Pay, Twitter. I'm going to get to some more investment related stuff in a minute, but there's a whole host of things which we'll go over quickly. But some of the books. So The Richest Man in Babylon. So this is a book that was based, I think it was written by George Clason, and you read the first chapter and you're like, what the heck is this? Why has this sold a bazillion copies? Who actually reads this junk? Well, actually, once you get through the first chapter, it is amazing. So I'm pretty sure that every single finance book ever written is based on this book.
Right.
And the reason why is that the book draws its lessons. So like save 10% of your income, pay down your debts to your family and all that sort of stuff. This book is based on things that were written on stones in Babylon.
Really?
So, like, I don't know, I'm going to say thousands of years ago. it was actually written on stones, and they found some of these stones, and then they've translated them, and they made it into a book, which was written about 100 years ago or more.
So really the advice hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. These principles haven't changed.
Yeah,
so
wow.
if someone comes up to me and says, this is the greatest finance book ever written, well, I'll be like, well, it probably got all of its ideas from this book, which got its ideas from stones from like before they had paper. So
so I have to add it to my book list.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a really short book. It's really big letters for people that don't like little letters. It's small pages. It's actually pretty, besides the fact that it was written 100 years ago, it's actually pretty easy to read. So
That's cool.
well worth it. If you understand the principles from that book, you won't need any others, honestly.
Yeah.
It's the rest of it's just trying to execute what the principles are.
I mean, most personal finance books are just sort of regurgitating similar information.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like the most popular books of recent years have been books that have effectively just taken those principles and made them
more accessible.
Yeah, more accessible, easy to understand, and then to put into practice.
Yeah.
So the next book is a book called Happy Money, and I've got it right on the desk here. And
Owen's a true fan.
yes, well, I was actually just preparing for this podcast, and I thought I'd just bring it out. But it's written by someone called Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton, and this goes back to our podcast with Ted Richards. I think he was lectured by Michael Norton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, anyway, we'll put the book in, when we did this Harvard Business School thing. So we'll put the book in the show notes. But it's a book about your perceptions towards money and how we feel and interact with money. And it's not like a book that you go and you're like, oh, I want to learn how to budget. It's actually a book about how you can have a better relationship with money. And that sounds pretty geeky, but some of the things that they talk in here are so relevant to everything that you do in life. Like the simple one, and this is a piece of advice that I give to people, is when they have money, don't buy material items, buy experiences, buy things that you'll remember, because those are the things you'll get so much more satisfaction from. And what this book does is it's 100 and, well, it says here before epilogue, it's 135 pages. But then there's 50 pages of studies to back up all of the references. So all the references, 50 pages worth of references to the ideas that they put in the book. So what does that tell you? That actually tells you that they actually did some research on the things. And they come up with some great studies that you could go away and you could just read because they're fascinating. Because more about psychology. Anyway, Zen in the martial arts. This might sound weird.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, okay. So this book is by a guy called Joe Hyams, and he wrote like 30 books, I don't know. And he wrote mostly about tennis, I believe, for most of his life. And then he decided to write a book when he was studying martial arts from people like Bruce Lee. So all these people that were like famous, martial artists in America, and they were touring and whatever. And the book is brilliant because, and how this relates to finance is that if you've got a really unhealthy association with the world at large, you're never ever going to have a healthy relationship with money and investing. Because as an investor, as someone who has to deal with bad times, and also has to invest and look forward with optimism, because if you don't, just go put your money under your mattress. If you don't look at the world with optimism, then you're not going to have that healthy relationship when it comes to putting your money to work. And this is a really good book about just understanding who you are and understanding what's important in life and what's not. So I include this there because it's just good life advice. And if you ask the financial planner, you'd say most of their time is just spent teaching people habits.
Yeah.
And that comes from just, having a good relationship with the world around you. So the last one I'll just mention here is the How to Money podcast. Oh. So that's run, who's it run by?
Oh, yeah, just someone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone Owen knows.
Someone I think I met once before. But no, I think it's a great resource. And I'm not the only podcaster that's recommended your podcast, Kate. I think Alan Collar and someone else recommended it not so long ago. So you're famous.
Yes, yep, in the Money Cafe. So that was cool.
Yeah, another big podcast in Australia. So, okay, I'm going to quickly finish this up and say some of the investing stuff that I look for. Fund managers, there's a couple of great fund managers who have very different styles that I look for. So I've just put a few in here. A guy called Tony Hansen from EGP Capital in Sydney. He's a very small fund manager, but some really good ideas. Can be a bit, I don't know, he will express his view and he has an opinion. So don't be put off if he's got a strong opinion on something. It's just who he is.
And this is someone you should be following on Twitter.
Yes, definitely should follow him on Twitter. So I don't know if it's EGP Capital or EGP Tony or something like that, but we'll put a link in Joe Mago, so both of these guys I've interviewed for podcasts. Joe Mago, a friend of mine, runs a investment fund called Lakehouse Capital. Totally different to Tony, kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum. Like Joe's just
they're small caps, right?
Yeah, Joe. So Tony at EGP does small caps, very small caps. Joe does small caps as well, but he's kind of like growth small caps. Tony's value small caps.
Right.
And then Joe also does a global fund, which invests in international shares and whatever. But those two are really good. Tony's especially, because Tony actually goes like right into the investment thesis and he really tells you exactly why he's buying things. Our website, which is Rask Media, I put this in here because not because it's a plug, simply because I don't have enough time these days, so I just end up reading a lot of what our writers do on the website. Fool.com in the US. So the Motley Fool in the US, I think, is a great website. Fool.com, that's as simple as this. It's got podcasts, videos, articles on US companies and international companies. It's a really good one. Morningstar. So there's morningstar.com and then there's morningstar.com.au. I never use the .com.au one. It looks like it was made before the internet and it is seriously like it's slow. Whereas the US ones, you can actually access Australian shares on the US version.
Okay, yep.
So you could just go morningstar.com, Commonwealth Bank, and it would come up with the .com version. And that's what I use for getting a really quick read on like financials and stuff. So a lot of it's free. There's some premium versions or whatever. Finally, a friend of mine, Andrew Page, started something called strawman.com, which is a website where you can share investment ideas. It's not for everyone. It's for people that are really active really active, but just more active with investing, and really focused on individual shares for now. I don't think there's ETFs and that type of thing on the platform, but it's just a member-driven kind of engagement environment, and it's really cool.
And you kind of vet other people's ideas. It's a bit better than forums like Hot Cuppa and stuff like that.
Yeah, where it can just be spammed and it can be pump and dumps, as they call them in the finance industry. Disclosure, I do have a financial stake in Strawman. So, that's my list. You've got your list. We'll put these lists together
in the show notes. So you can have a look, explore some of the tools. And if you have any great tools that we didn't mention, love to hear, because always trying to find something better.
yeah, especially you. You seem to try a lot.
Yeah, I try a lot. And we might mention that in another podcast episode. Sometimes trying too many things can be to your detriment.
But hey, you got the whole buffet here, so you can choose from a lot. And Kate's done her research. So, if you have any questions, we love questions.
Yeah, so I'm available at howtomoney.online.
You can find me on raskfinance.com. And you can email, actually, you're on Twitter.
Yeah, it's on Twitter at howtomoneyAUS and Instagram.
And I'm Owen Rask on Twitter and Instagram. But people can email us questions, podcast at Rask Finance. That's podcast at raskfinance.com. Or you can just head to the Rask Finance website or the howtomoney.online website to lodge a question. We really like the questions, really like the engagement. So please keep them coming in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Hope you enjoyed today's Financial Toolkit episode.
Yeah, it's a bit longer, but yeah. Hope you get a lot from it. Thanks for listening.
All right.